I've had patients actually ask me this question. I heard you do comedy. I heard you do theater. How do you find the time for this when you're a serious doctor? So I ask them, when you're done for the day in your corporate career, whatever else that you do, what do you do in the evening? So he says, I go back and I watch a little TV. And I'm like, okay, you're watching that man yell on TV and not allow any of his panelists speak. So you're doing that. And if I do that, I think my BP will go up. So I have another option where my BP stays steady. And I go out for a theater rehearsal or a play rehearsal, or we do improv. Most of it is post 7:30, 8 in the evening. So when other people are watching, the Saas Bahu serials, or maybe surfing the net and checking what, the latest YouTube celebrity has done, or who shouted galis at the whole world, while you're doing that, I've chosen to do something. So it's also a way I spend my time. So I don't see the dichotomy. I don't see the conflict over there that, if you're a serious doctor, you can't be doing this.
Anil is one of the most fun and genuine people I've had on the show. He's a doctor by profession, a dermatologist, who is also a teacher and a professor, a stand-up comedian too, and also an actor who has starred in various plays as part of the theatre fraternity, commercials, and also some of the big movies alongside big names like Parvati and Tovino Thomas as part of the Malayalam film industry. We talk about the learnings from stand-up, like yes-anding, how one should strive to be fulfilled by whatever you do in life, and how it's so important for you to get out of your comfort zone. Yeah, we also talk about how every single person on earth at some point in their lives have had some kind of fear when it comes to hair loss. Take it from the expert dermatologist. So yeah, once again, you're not alone. We all think and freak out about the same thing. So relax and take a chill pill. Before we get into the episode though, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in to the episodes on a regular basis and showering us with the good feedback and constant support. We have this group of listeners who consume our content as soon as it drops. You know who you guys are. I wanted to talk about an incident that happened with last week's episode that underscores this whole thing. So there was a small mishap from my side where I forgot to completely schedule the episode that dropped last Wednesday. So I think I had set up everything from the title to description to the cover art and all the details that goes behind, any of these episodes. But I forgot to hit the schedule button. Can you believe it? So I think normally our episodes drop at about 7 a.m. in the morning. So that way, if you are on your, regular workouts, or if you're going for your morning walk or your commute, the episode drops at the right time for you to consume it and, listen to it, or, you can passively learn from. But what happened with last week's episode though was at about 10 or 11 a.m. when I did check my Instagram, I noticed that I had about 6-7 people ping me asking me if the episode was not going to be dropped today. And I was a little shocked and surprised because the episode is supposed to have gone up at least 4 hours ago. So that's when I took a look at my scheduling or my podcast hosting software, and I realized that I'd forgotten to hit the schedule button. Well, that was quite silly of me, no denying that. But what I want to really highlight here is that I really had no idea that people were waiting for the episode to drop. And especially as soon as it dropped, I've seen a little bit of a, let's say, spike with the consumption and listening. But I actually got to feel it or experience it firsthand this time. So yeah, like I said, thank you so much for tuning in and consuming it as soon as it's out. You guys have been pivotal in ensuring that, you keep me on my toes. And, that's exactly why I put in all the hard work and ensure that these are episodes that is something that you look forward to every week. So that concludes today's episode of Akash Rants. So let's get right into the episode. Without further ado, this is episode 25 with Anil Abraham.
I have to tell you an expletive story.
Okay. Yeah, please do.
Theatre story.
Yeah.
So one of the first plays I did with this was with this very maverick theatre director called Preetham Koilpille, who's famous. And I wanted very badly to work with him.
Okay.
So I was willing to go to. This sounds like a casting couch story, but it isn't. So I said, he said, I don't think this, play is your kind. So I said, no, I want to work with you. So I'll do this play. So there was this line in the play when it came to the F word, and I would drop volume and pitch over there because I'm not comfortable saying anything like that. So whenever it came, I would totally lose character, and then the character would become this shy schoolboy instead of whatever I was supposed to be playing with this aggressive man who's lost his temper. Right. So Preetham decided he had to cure this disease and took me to Brigade Road and made me stand in the middle of the road and shout the word out at every passing person.
Wow.
After that, nothing is beyond me. I realized that in theatre, you're the character and you just have to play the blessed character you've been given to play, and stop bringing Anil Abraham into the role that you're doing.
Right.
So that was a very effective lesson.
You think you need to put on one of those hats here?
No, but you're interviewing me. Yeah. So you're not interviewing a theatre character.
But you could change into one of those characters though.
The worst thing I've called a student when I got really angry with this, you're such a piglet. And then instead of getting upset, they start laughing because they find it hilarious that this serious-looking senior professor is calling them a piglet. That's about as bad as I get in the words that I use. So imagine me on Delhi roads rolling my window down and saying, you piglet. But it depends. Nowadays in India, you have to be careful who you're calling. A piglet could be a really bad insult. Yeah. Chota suar.
Oh, man. So I think we just gotten started anyway. So let's actually, for people who don't know you, what's the simplest and easiest way to describe yourself?
A jack of all trades and a master of none. One or two, maybe. Hopefully by the end of my life.
It's not even true, but come on. Yeah.
One or two you must reach mastery level.
Right.
But otherwise I would like to dabble in many things, and it hasn't been that way. So for a large part of my life, I was straitjacketed. I was told to stay strictly in the box. So I've broken the box and I'm running around wild in all directions right now. So I realized, these are all cliches. The problem with life nowadays, or having any conversation like this, is that almost everything that needs to be said has been said by somebody wise. So you get these quotes. So when I say you have only one life to live and I have to do everything in this one life, I'm thinking I've read this somewhere. This has been in a book. Somebody has said this already. So yes, I acknowledge the fact that everything that everyone wants to say has been said already. But cliches aside, I think I realized somewhere halfway down the journey that you have only one life to live and I have to do it in this life. There's no parallel life or a second one. I don't know. I'm not going into Hindu mythology here. But as far as I'm concerned, this one life, and I have to do all the hats, as you said, I have to put on all the hats that I have to put on right now.
Right. Sure. So you come from, when you say straitjacket, you come from, having spent so many years in the field of medicine, right? You're probably the first, and dare I say, the only person I know, or only persons like our viewers might know, who is also doing stand-up and theatre, and also, being on the silver screen, along with you, practicing medicine full-time as well, right? Mm-hmm. So, what has your journey been like with medicine, and where did you decide that you need to, balance it out by, like you said, letting loose and running around without a straitjacket on?
This is not something that happened suddenly like a midlife crisis, which is also happening. I'm not denying that. But from when I was a kid, I've been very interested in theatre. I've been writing. In fact, I used to write middles and stories for the Deccan Herald when I was in school still. Okay. So those are things that I enjoyed doing. But like a typical South Indian home, I was told where my limits are. And like I tell everyone, it was like, Moni, 10th standard, you just study 10th standard and you do well in this exam. After that, everything after that. And then it was after 12th standard, it was after entrance exam. And after medicine, they told me, you just get your PG seat. And then after that, in between this, checked out whether I wanted to do IAS or something else, which was socially acceptable, but not anything else. So then I did all those things, and then I found that I was rapidly hurtling towards middle age, and I hadn't done any of the things that I wanted to do. So I took charge of my life and said,
Finally,
yeah, okay, I'm going to be doing this, what life intended me to do, and also doing all the things that society accepts as what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. But how did you uncover the talent for maybe stand-up or theater. Or I think you've been doing theater for quite a while as well, right? But when did you decide, at what point, that, okay, theater is where I need to also spend a couple of my hours a day or a week or whatever? Because I think what we've spoken about on the show earlier too is how when you're young, you are exposed to so many things. Either your parents send you out for all these classes, or you get to, just be part of a very different, I think the community here in Bangalore is very, very different from the other cities, right? So you get exposed to so many things. And then by the end of, let's say, your school or high school for that matter, you're just like, wow, I've tried all these things, but I still don't know which one I should pick. But then how did you finally decide, okay, so I need to make a profession in maybe around medicine, but at the same time maybe move into theater?
So I think I knew there was this huge passion or interest in theatre from school.
Okay.
And when people say they started theatre in school, it's usually they're standing as the tree in the background in the fairy tale or something. No, we were doing we were doing good theatre in St. Joseph's, and there were a couple of priests and English teachers who were seriously theatre oriented. So we had a principal whom we call Cop, who was Father Hedwig de Costa, who's just his recitation of Shakespeare in class, and he would make us do different roles in school. We would make us, very passionate about theatre. So I must give credit to them and to an organization called Bangalore Little Theatre, which didn't treat you like a child. So if you were into a production and were taking part in a play, you were given the due respect that every other performer was giving. Now, at the end of a day where you've studied or you've played a game or done something related to school or what the world wants you to do, I would feel tired and I would go to sleep. But at the end of the day, when I was doing theatre, I would feel tired, but I was also feeling hugely fulfilled. It was a satisfied tiredness. And somewhere early on, I could make out the difference between the two types of tired. And the second tired was definitely something that I wanted. You've had a good day, you've done lots of work, you've done something that you really enjoy, and I was tired and fulfilled and slept well.
Right.
So that was the kind of life I wanted. And then, like you said, challenges. Once theatre became comfortable, that means, I had no problem learning a script or doing what I'm a director's actor. So doing what my director wanted me to do, that wasn't a problem. So when that ceased to be a challenge, I think I kept trying to create new challenges for myself. And improv comedy presented itself, the group with Saad Khan and Rai Soonawala and Danish and things like that. And to look up to people like that who were already in the field and performing well. And when they gave me a chance to perform with them and to learn the craft or the skill with them, it was fun to do that. And we were a group of newcomers, so we were not being judged at the same level, but we were getting to perform with them, which was great. So improv, I don't think improv will ever cease to be a challenge, because every performance of improv is totally unpredictable, and it's great fun.
That's what the word says,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. So some of the beautiful things that I like about improv, one of the principles of improv, which works, I think, very well in real life, is a principle called yes-anding. That means the partner, whoever you're working with, the teammate at that particular moment, might give you a ridiculous, premise. He might come on as a man from the moon, but you have to say yes to what he has just created, and you have to add something to it.
Correct.
I think that's a beautiful principle even for whatever you're doing, whether it's medicine, dealing with a patient. You have a patient sometimes come in, and if I'm taking the situation of hair loss or of skin, and they say...
I think you should tell people that you're the doctor
I'm a
and
dermatologist. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
why did you pick that out of everything? Are you like picking on my insecurities
here?
here?
It's a universal problem. I've not come across a single human being who at some time has not experienced panic-inducing hair loss. Even if you have wonderful hair on your head, at some stage you've gone, or at least looked in the mirror and thought to yourself, am I becoming my father? Am I losing all my hair? So that thought is there. So when a patient comes in, where was I? Yes.
Yeah.
So when they come in and say, Doc, I'm losing hair, and I think it's because I shifted to Koramangala. So the connection, you have to yes and.
Yeah.
You have to go with, yes, you're losing hair. And it's possible that, the water in Koramangala may be difficult, or the commute to Koramangala on Hosur Road may be causing you stress. So you take the situation that he's created and you add something to it. And then you say, but let's do a few tests to see if you're deficient in anything. So you've taken the situation one step further. You can change the direction. So I love the yes-anding principle of improv. The other one that I really enjoy in improv is a principle which is called there are no mistakes, there is no failure. And so if you stumble, make it part of the dance. I really enjoy this because I don't think, again, through the number of episodes that you've had and the wonderful people you've spoken to, I don't think anyone's come and sat and told you my life has been perfect.
Yeah.
Every single thing that I planned happened according to my plan, and it went perfectly on course. It doesn't happen. For all people out there who think that the people you're interviewing who seem, right now their life seems fairly okay, perfect, successful. It didn't. We've stumbled and fallen several times. But
and we'll continue to do so as well, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the nice part of improv, it says, if you stumble, pretend it's a step that Prabhudeva just taught you and make it look like a new type of dance that you just learned.
Not like you've learned it off his video, he's taught you.
Yeah. This is like, we meant to do this. I was supposed to fall at this point and get up very clumsily because it was meant to add a little humor to the whole situation.
Wow, yeah.
So there are no mistakes. If
Right.
you've made mistakes, it's okay. It was part of the story and I wrote it in there to make you laugh.
Right. So when did you realize that something like theater, which is a scripted thing, right? I mean, at the end, like you said, you're a director's actor. So you have someone who's guiding you or at least telling you this is what the end outcome should look like, as opposed to improv where you're the,
Yes.
master of yourself and you just get on there and you basically do what you're meant to do, and then also what the group or the team along with you is doing, right? How did you move away from this, or rather you started doing both together as well, right? How did you find that?
If you listen to interviews from people like people who successful actors and have been in theater, I'm talking about movie actors,
Right.
like say Mr. Naziruddin Shah and people like that, they'll always tell you that theater is their first love. It's something that they'll go back to whenever they get a chance. Right. So I must stress that theater is my first love. I really enjoy doing theater, and the fact that somebody far more knowledgeable than me has scripted something with a clear idea of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and wants to go from some place and convey some message to an audience, and I am just an instrument or an implement in that, is very satisfying because I'm being used and I'm allowing myself to be used to convey a message. So I enjoy that completely, whether it's a message that Shakespeare wrote years ago and is being reinterpreted, or it's a classic like the Mahabharata and you're telling it in your own way from Draupadi's viewpoint, or from telling the Ramayana from the viewpoint of Ravan, which is a viewpoint which we should look at what the seeming villain was thinking at that particular time, and did he have any justification for what he was doing. So I enjoy that process, and theatre is very, very fulfilling. Improv is fulfilling because it's a huge challenge, and there is no super performer in improv. Today could be your day, and then tomorrow you'll find that all the things that you said and created and thought were very nice yesterday are just not working because you're with another teammate, you're with another audience. The audience is just very resistant to the jokes.
They come from Koramangala.
Yes. Being a little older in the improv group, I often find myself when we're performing at pubs and things like that, is that I have to reinvent myself because we're catering to a completely younger audience. And several of my other improv, teammates will be like, say, Karan Machado, who's like hugely talented and knows how to talk to an audience like that.
Right.
Or somebody like Danish who knows how to talk to any audience.
Yeah.
And then suddenly one day we'll be called to perform to a senior corporate audience or in a retirement home to older people. And suddenly no one's laughing at their jokes. And everyone's very like, Anil is very funny. Anil is doing well. I can understand what he's saying. So when I say I've reached the age when, I finally managed to put my mind together and my body started to fall apart, or I make fun of Tinder and how we never had Tinder. And the only way we had to hook up with a girl was an app called Arranged Marriage. And then the elderly people in the room are like, this man is really funny, and I've had my day. It depends on the nature of the audience you're dealing with. The response that you get is totally different. I have one advantage is because I have teenage sons.
Right.
So now they give me a perspective. So sometimes when they're watching me, I will know from their faces how I can adjust my humor and my material to cater to a much younger audience, because the audience at home, which includes my wife and my two kids, are the most critical audience that I've ever had. And anytime I feel that, I'm really doing well, I have done something well,
Get them to sit down and...
they will ground me and bring me down to earth very definitely, because it's like, Appa, please don't start another one of those, please. And I know there's some secret thing of, he's a funny man and he's doing comedy. Because I had the situation where Anirudh had called his friends for a sleepover, and they were on the first floor, and I had to pass as I was climbing the stairs through that. And so I hesitated for a moment and said, "Hi, I hope you all are having a good time," and all in that very fatherly manner. And one of the friends said, "Uncle, can you do some comedy?" So they watched some YouTube videos or something and thought there's this funny man at home who's supposed to perform on demand. Like, if you say do some comedy, he'll suddenly
Netflix.
do jokes. Yeah. So that impression is what most people have of stand-up comics and improv, that any given situation in life, whether it's a funeral or whatever, you're going to suddenly come up with funny stuff.
Wow. So do you actually try or sit your family down and do the first round with them?
It's very scary to do that.
Yeah, but do you do
because
it?
it's going to bomb like that. Most of the material is family created.
Right.
For one, they'll start censoring me, and Adi will be like, "Please don't do that. Please don't mention my life. You can't say that about me." So that if I go through that, then I'm in trouble. But usually they get to see the first run of it, as in they will be watching as I'm performing, or they would be watching a recording of it. And before it actually goes out into the big world, they would have seen and commented on it at home. So they're my worst trolls.
Okay, so I think you also spoke about, when we spoke on a call, I think we spoke about how you know other people too within your own, medicine fraternity who are also pursuing theatre and other arts as well, right?
Yes.
So again, is that, I don't know, because obviously I've never worked in medicine or studied medicine as such, but do you see a lot of that, folks there who want to pursue something else, either as a full-time gig once they're done with their, let's say, their course? Because the moment you're committing to, let's say, your MBBS, it just doesn't end there, right? You need to specialize, you need to, it's like a couple of years, at least a good decade of your life that goes into just getting certified for you to practice, right? But I'm sure that with the number of people that do sign up, like I think we spoke earlier, people sign up for engineering, and then most of them don't end up doing that, or they're just, miserable with what they're doing. I'm sure that with doctors as well, there are a lot of people who want to try other things too. And I know a couple of them who have hobbies and, they have their passions and they're doing things on the side. But do you see people who are doing this like the way you are, who kind of really dedicate a good percent of their, weekly time into arts, or, let's say in this matter, theatre or arts itself?
I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to,
Yeah.
and then hesitate to take that step out of their comfort zone, because they think that, society has built this box for me,
Yeah.
and you're not taken seriously. I think I spoke to you about my neighborhood uncle.
Yeah, we need to definitely talk about him.
Who doesn't approve of me doing all these other things, and will let me know. Even if I've written a humorous article in a newspaper, he will say, I saw your article in the newspaper and it does not say Dr. Anil Abraham. You should put doctor. So everybody will know that you're a doctor, which I don't see the reason for. Or if I'm dressed slightly differently in some YouTube video that he's seen. Okay, I've done a YouTube character called Pushpalata Gaitonde where I'm in drag. Okay,
Yeah.
So I'm playing a air hostess who's making political satire based on what she's announcing.
seen that,
Yeah. So then he would not like something like that at all. And one day I think he indirectly insinuated to me that I'm glad your parents are not here anymore to see this kind of nonsense that you do. They educated you very well, and now you are doing things like this. So my neighbor uncle does not approve at all of my forays into other fields. But I think there is a large proportion of people who have other interests. And like you say, some of them manage a good balance. They would keep it as a hobby. I know of several doctors. St. John's kind of encourages, St. John's is a medical school which encourages that kind of thing. We always have theatre and music and stuff like that going on. So I know several doctors who are excellent musicians, singers, and they manage their primary career and this at the same time. There are some others who've gone, like I think you've heard of a senior Hindi actor called Dr. Sriram Lagu, who came away completely and, concentrated on acting. So some people manage a balance. Some people come away into the second field that is actually their passion. And when you say, I've had patients actually ask me this question. Sometimes they come in and say, I heard you do comedy. I heard you do theatre. How do you find the time for this when you're a serious doctor? So that is one question I get.
Serious doctor?
Yeah. They really worried whether, I'm concentrating on my medicine or, keeping up with the times and things like that.
Right.
So I asked them, when you're done for the day in your corporate career, whatever else that you do, what do you do in the evening? So he says, I go back and I watch a little TV. And I'm like, okay, you're watching that man yell on TV and not allow any of his panelists speak. Uh, no names.
TV.
I have not taken any names.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're doing that. And if I do that, I think my BP will go up. So I have another option where my BP stays steady. And I go out for a theatre rehearsal or a play rehearsal, or we do improv. Most of it is post 7:30, 8 in the evening. So when other people are watching, the Saas Bahu serials, or maybe surfing the net and checking what, the latest YouTube celebrity has done, or who shouted galis at the whole world, while you're doing that, I've chosen to do something. So it's also a way I spend my time. So I don't see the dichotomy. I don't see the conflict over there. That if you're a serious doctor, you can't be doing this. So I'm very serious about my medicine. I'm very serious about my keeping up with what is going on in the field of medicine, being up to date, and being able to do good treatment for my patients. But I also think that the second question I get asked sometimes by press journalists when they're interviewing me before a play or before a performance is like, you're a doctor, you're teaching in a medical college, and you're also doing this theatre or comedy. How do these three things get connected? Yeah. How do they get connected? What is the connection? It seems like three different roads. Like you've reached a crossroad and you have to take left, right, or center. You have to make up your mind. You can't be doing all. It somehow, creates...
It's like they're jealous.
Yeah. What are you doing all three? This
How
is
dare
just
you?
not allowed. So I tell them the common thread, I think, is effective communication. You cannot be a good teacher without being bringing some part of showbiz into it. I don't think students nowadays are forgiving of teachers who just drone on for an hour and supposedly tell you physics or chemistry or biology without adding some element of excitement into it. So the famous one that my students keep quoting years after I've stopped teaching them, and they come back as, revered professors in Harvard and Oxford and somewhere. So they'll come back and say, remember the time you taught us about STDs? And it's a Christian college, so you're not allowed to say certain things. So I would end the lecture by telling them, if you like to play in the rain, you should remember to wear a raincoat. And there would be a moment of silence where they're not sure in a Catholic college whether this man has actually said this. And then I say, you can opt not to play in the rain. That is an option. Because
I need to play
in the rain. Because I know there are nuns in the classroom. And so all this playing in the rain is going to get referred somewhere.
Father, what is Anil talking about?
No, I'm just telling you can get pneumonia if you play in the rain. So wear a raincoat. If you like playing in the rain, go ahead and do that. But, option, sister, is to not play in the rain. But remember the raincoat. It's important. And then years later, they'll come back and tell me, your raincoat story is so stuck in my head that I use it several times when I'm gently telling somebody else the same message. So, showbiz, comedy, something that comes into teaching. You can't be an effective teacher without being entertaining nowadays. And the same, when you're a doctor, I think the patients like their doctors who talk. It's not about, take a capsule 3 times a day and apply this ointment and come back, or this injection. There's a lot more. You have to talk about lifestyle. You have to kind of make it funny. Coming back to the example of hair loss, whenever a housewife comes in with her husband and says, doctor, I'm really panicking. I think I'm losing hair. And then the husband, of course, who's been parking the car, how parking is difficult in Bangalore, has just walked in 2 minutes later. I'll make him sit down and say, she said she's losing her hair and you're the cause. And the man looks like, oh God, my wife, has she been doing this kind of thing? And so that
told you.
So that's like an icebreaker. You immediately are able to establish a rapport. So comedy helps in unexpected places to kind of, okay, now we've established the fact that you've got hair loss and he's not the cause.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
So what other causes could we be thinking of? Could you be having a thyroid problem and so on? So communication, whether it's as a doctor, as a teacher, as a performer, I think is the key. And a lot of the people you've spoken to in whatever field they are successful at, I think the key is effective communication. So if that is a skill that you wish to develop, all these theatre, improv, comedy, stand-up, all of them are good things to take up as a challenge and work into your lifestyle.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you one big reason I started the show
Yes.
is to do that too, which is to I think I can sit down and have a conversation with anyone, right? I've reached that point where I can really open up to just, let's say, a stranger that you meet, because even with just a group of friends and the circle acquaintances, all of that, it's easy. But having to, like you said, where people are watching you and you speaking in a way with the right sort of enunciation, with the you ensuring that you can get your points across. And I think we were talking about how people might know a lot of things. Knowledge is great and vast, but they just can't put into words.
And they're wonderful people. I have great respect for the work that they're doing. But sometimes they're not getting the position due to them because they're not able to express themselves.
Right.
And when a teacher tells you, get up there, and I'm grateful to the teachers who made us do, recitation and come out there and pretend to be characters when they were reading a play, because it got you over that horrendous thing, which is stage fright. If you can get over the situation that, or not worry too much about being judged. Get out there and do your thing without thinking, am I looking good? And is this, sounding nice? Is it sounding correct? If you can do that without too much of filter, then I think it's a wonderful place you've reached.
Absolutely. I think stage fright and all that's very inherent, right? Like stage fright, fear of heights, I think things that you're pretty much born with, because we're social beings. So the fact that you need to be accepted when you put yourself out there it's like a second nature to you, right?
In fact, the fright never goes away. I was telling you, I think about the new challenge, the stepping out of comfort zone. And for example, stand-up comedy is relatively new for me. So just before, the previous stand-up is finishing and they're announcing my name, there is this immense churning in my stomach. But I don't know if it's a bad thing. I think it's good, because that adrenaline rush puts you out there and
yourself and let's go.
Let's get in there. And what's the worst that can happen? And worst that can happen is you can stumble and fail. And like we said, improv said, chalega.
Yeah, Prabhudeva.
Pick up the pieces and go on in life.
Yeah. I that's the thing, right? So I think with this show too, what I've tried to do is, at least I'm thinking, if I don't make it anywhere with the show, at least I've sat down with so many guests. I've got to meet them, have a conversation, network in the most selfish way possible. At least got that out of the way.
Yes.
Out of this whole thing, as opposed to thinking of, oh my God, did my show make it or not? It's a very weird way to think about, but also because I was doing my corporate job prior to this, right? Where I didn't really get exposed to anyone for that matter outside your team.
Yes.
You just get to interact with your client members, you just get to interact with your team members, and that's that. And then you go back home and then I do what the other person told you, which is probably watch something on TV and just go to bed. So right now, I was thinking of, okay, what are the best ways for me to maybe be a little more social? How do I connect with people?
It's very true what you're saying, because I remember the time when I'm not doing theatre or not doing stand-up, and there's these conferences we have, medical conferences, and we'll stand together, and it's usually a whole lot of male doctors standing together, and then they'll say, how's clinic going, and how much you're making, and what you're doing for the tax, and what are the mutual fund investments, what car have you bought. There is a standard set of 8 conversation topics. And I'm not a, how do I put this politely? I'm not a man in that sense that I don't fit into that box either. So after some time, I'm like, okay, I can't stand this conversation anymore, because I've done this 442 times and I need to move to the wives section or the lady doctor section, where there's more interesting conversation happening about music and something else.
Yeah.
So the conversations start to get stilted. So I need to have a variation in that. And the interesting part of doing improv or stand-up comedy is, unlike the deferential treatment I get as a doctor or as a teacher, where it's like, sir, how are you doing, sir? Okay. He's come for coffee. Even if I've entered a canteen, it's like, okay, sir, all right. So that is happening. And then I suddenly go into this improv group where everybody is like, what, macha, how are you doing, da? And I'll be like, yes, I'm also a da still. So that feels really good to be treated completely disrespectfully. And as in there's nobody who's like standing up for you and providing for you and all that. You're like just one of the guys, and like, acha, you're going to get a beer, get me one too, kind of thing is happening. So that is very, very enjoyable. Plus I'm dealing with people from different, when you're doing stand-up, there's somebody who's done law, there's an engineer, there's somebody.
Obviously there's an engineer.
Yeah. There's someone who's just smoking up all day and doing nothing else, which is also an interesting part of life. One of my improv group guys, I don't know if he's going to get into trouble because of this, no names, who's like come home for an improv rehearsal and then says 1 minute macha and steps out and then comes back with something. I'm looking at him like, where did you find this? at the corner of your road, no, that guy who's selling tender coconut, he is also doing this. I'm like, I've lived here for 30 years. I never knew that guy is doing this.
It's that eye, right? He's going looking for this.
No, I think they know where to get their stuff. There's different kinds of people, and the irreverence of the whole thing is very enjoyable. The fact that nobody is being reverent and differential.
Right.
So that's fun.
I mean, do you think that's one of the big reasons why you're taking this up, or is this just because this is where you thrive? I mean, are you looking at diversity in terms of being exposed that way, or do you think it's...
No, I think it's one of the side effects or side benefits is that you get to meet a wonderful collection of different people from different phases of life. And sometimes really this age factor is very stupid. I mean, that the way you talk to an older person and all that kind of thing, which has come the sanskar, which is good. We maintain some sanskar.
Respect is one thing, right?
Is good. But just because he's older, he knows everything. I've been in groups where I've been with much younger people, and sometimes we've been in a conflict situation. We've disagreed about something as a team, and the kind of perspective that a much younger person has given me or has sorted me out when I'm totally losing it and getting bugged about something, you tend to go into that whiny, complaining kind of thing. And he's like, not really. There's lots of good, no? In this, there's you're getting all these things, and then there's one negative. He's also like that. So don't you think we can? And I'm thinking this chap is just 24 years old.
Where's this perspective come from?
Much more mature than I've ever been. So it grounds you. It puts you in your place, and you learn to understand that just being older doesn't mean you're wiser. There are lots of very young, wise people out there, and I enjoy the fact that I'm learning from them. The same thing has happened with students. There have been so many situations where a medical student has put things in perspective for me. The maturity in organizing something when they have their cull fests, or their ability to put things together, or to tolerate me when I'm a bit controlling, as in I need to have everything done perfectly and done in order, because that's the way I've brought myself up.
Right.
So then when everything is not going in that perfect order that I've planned, sometimes I totally lose it. So people have seen that side of me that, oh God, this man is going to go crazy again. So I've had students who've looked at me with amusement, as in, okay, he's going through one of those things, and
he's doing that again.
Yeah, but essentially he's a nice man, so we will allow him his little wild 5 minutes, and then he'll come back to normal. So they know I'm going to come back to normal, and I'm a useful member of the team at the end of the day, so they're willing to tolerate that. And that's taught me a lesson that occasionally you need to be a little less judgmental, and a little less perfect is okay.
Right.
Sometimes it's fun when it's not perfect.
Right. I think what we didn't really, maybe we didn't explicitly call it out, but you have also taught at St. John's, right?
I've taught and enjoyed teaching. I think that's one of the most enjoyable parts of my life, is being able to teach students. Right. In two ways. One, it maintains you as being young, because you're in touch with a much younger generation for a long period of time. I think it's there genetically, so I completely enjoy conveying a complicated message in a very, very simple way. So I feel you need to read a lot, digest and understand something before you teach somebody else. So whether it's my own children, telling them, what they need to know right now, and not in terms of life lessons, but generally if they're studying physics, chemistry or biology and it needs explanation, I enjoy doing that. History, geography, whatever. And the students I taught in medical college, I think the rapport that I built with my students, they have to say that to me. But otherwise, the messages I get many years later is like, I think that is a place where I've made a difference. And I am proud of the fact that I've enjoyed teaching and managed to be in teaching for about 30 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
They actually have a grading system for teachers, and they put up a list of best teachers and things like that. And I figured in the list often. So that's something that I completely enjoyed doing.
Okay. Let me just get some water, Anil.
What's special in his water?
Nothing. Do you need my not so special
No,
water?
I want to know whether he slipped vodka into it or something. Suddenly energy levels.
Yeah, that's why I had to take the break. Anil, let me just get some water, come vodka, and
that's what you call it.
Water come vodka. Yeah. But how did you move on to teaching, though? I mean, again, once you did complete your once you were done with your courses, I assumed, or did you start teaching in parallel? And at what point did you realize that you wanted to teach? Because I think theater was going on side by side, right?
See, a person who becomes a doctor has a choice of joining an academic institution or just being completely in practice. So practice was not even, as in private practice, was not an option for me. I knew I wanted to be a teacher at the same time. So if you're practicing in a place like St. John's, you're seeing a large OPD of 200 or 300 patients. And at the same time, medical teaching is not that much of classroom teaching. It's more of people sitting with you, working with you, and learning from the way you deal with patients. It's imbibing what you're practicing.
Right.
So not only are they learning the subject from you, but they're also learning people skills. They're learning how to speak to a person, how to deal with grief situations when there's something serious. So all that is happening at the same time. So it's a small group of students sitting with you usually. That OPD teaching is going on. As you're seeing patients, they are also spending time with you and learning. So I don't think I had any doubt in my mind that was my course of life. I mean, I needed to have, I finished medicine, but I was going to go into academic medicine, as in which involved teaching, working in a medical college and seeing patients at the same time. Somewhere along the way, because it was allowed, I started a private practice too. And so as a retirement plan, as I was easing off from the medical college, primarily because of the commute on Hosur Road, which was taking me an hour and a half to reach and an hour and a half to come back. And I found that was 3 hours of really valuable time being wasted on the road.
Right.
So Bangalore traffic drove me to full-time private practice.
Drove you to.
Drove me, yes, literally drove me up the wall and drove me to full-time private practice. So after, when I'd finished about 30 years, I said, okay, I've done this bit. I've enjoyed it. And at any time when there's an opportunity to teach, whether it's at a conference or to a junior who's come in to learn from me, I will continue teaching. But private practice had picked up a lot by then. And also in private practice, you're in charge of your own time. So if I want to say at 7:30, I finish for the day, and it gives me a chance to do comedy or do theater, I could control the times that I was spending and still be available for patients.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I now kind of see that, the common thread among all these things that you're doing, which is, I think, we go back to effective communication, right? With just being a doctor, the fact that you can sit down and really have a conversation as opposed to, you're just prescribing something and just getting, get them going with whatever it is, right? Or with you having to express your thoughts as an actor or as an improv actor too, right? And even with being a teacher, I think it's so important for you to sit down because, like you said, it's not just what you teach them theoretically, but it's also your mannerisms, your soft skills that really come into play, right?
True.
Yeah. And do you, I think we spoke about this too, where you, the patients come to you where they're saying one thing, but they're probably, trying to imply something else, right? And I think that can only come when you have gotten past a certain point of, maybe imbibing those conversational skills, right? It's only once you realize, okay, he's saying this or she's saying this, but probably this is not where it's spawning from. So what have you seen there? Because I'm sure that is something that you can use in any phase of your life.
Again, another cliche that is often used in conversation and communication is that everyone says that talking is important, but I think the listening part is equally important. A lot of times, as the patient enters the room, even before they finish their first sentence, you've started picking up the pen and writing. It's like, I've seen this so many times.
I know exactly what's happening.
If you're not listening, if you're not looking at, I've had seniors who don't even look up from the prescription pad. So if you're not listening, if you're not looking at the patient and seeing the other non-verbal communication that's happening with you, you'll miss out on a lot of the stories that they're trying to tell you, especially in my field, which is a lot to do with the external. So, with the body image problems and things like people coming to you and saying, I don't think I look good. I have pigmentation, I have some situation on my face, or it could be something with a teenager with acne. But what they're trying to tell you is something totally different. I've had situations where someone is saying, do something for me, do a laser, do fillers, do Botox, do something to make me look different. And the story is actually related to marital disharmony. There's some domestic crisis going on. So no amount of injections or lasers that I'm going to do is going to give me a satisfied patient if I don't recognize that and recognize the fact that, some amount of counseling, either from me or from a trained counselor separately, is it's not going to help the patient, because they will spend thousands of rupees, and still at the end of 3 months they're still going to be an unhappy person, because the domestic problem has not been sorted out. So they might be looking much better for any observer, but the problem that they came for, which is their husband is having an affair with his secretary, say, is not going to go away, right? So then, unless you've got counseling and telling the person how to deal with that situation, either accept it or move out or face the challenge of whatever needs to be done, if that is not being sorted out simultaneously, and you haven't even understood that that is the situation, because you're so busy writing a prescription, you've not listened to the patient completely, then you're going to have, over a period of time, many unhappy patients. So especially when you're dealing with the body, when you're dealing with look, a lot of times it's reflecting something that's going on inside their mind or inside their body. When I say inside their body, again, I'm referring to internal disease. The skin is a mirror of what is going on in your body. So many times people ask me about the secret of youth, the secret of good hair. It cannot be without good lifestyle. It cannot be without good exercise, without good eating. You can't hope to get any of those things simply with a doctor's implement. So if you're not taking care of a thyroid problem or a hormonal problem for a woman, or a man who's, drinking way out of normal limits, or smoking up all the time, then whatever you do in terms of beautifying somebody on the external is not going to reflect in the long run, because it's going to go back to wherever it started.
Right.
So listening, I think, is very important, because you'll see the other things that are happening in a person's life. And if you're having a comfortable, camaraderie and conversation with the patient, you'll pick up those other signs which also need dealing with.
How do you handle those though? Because these are such, sensitive topics, right? I mean, you never know where, what can of worms this might open up, right? The moment you have this conversation, let's say you finally, crack the code, and then they open up, and then you're just like, oh my God, what have I just signed up for, right? How do you handle those situations though? Because at the end of the day, they're coming to you for another reason. I mean, you are specialized in dermatology, right? So how do you handle those situations? And have you had instances like that too?
Yes, it happens almost every day.
Wow.
I don't think it's happening only to a dermatologist. It'll be happening to a cardiologist. It'll be happening to an endocrine specialist. It'll be happening to everybody. Right. And the unfortunate or fortunate part of it, we have to know where to draw the line. We have to know that a certain amount of counseling, a certain amount of hand-holding has to happen from the primary doctor. They came to you for a problem. You need to deal with that problem, and you also need to recognize and help them to accept that there is another problem. So once they've done that, maybe it takes a smaller amount, or they want the counseling from you. They just want to listen to what you have to say. They want a sounding board. I think this is same of a husband-wife relationship. Often when your wife comes to you and tells you about a problem, you as a very motivated husband is solving it. Sometimes they don't want the solution from you. They just want you to sit for 5 minutes peacefully and listen to the fact that they have a problem. You don't have to solve the world's problems. The patient is sometimes not coming to you for all the solutions. They just want, will you just listen to me? I'm having a really bad time.
I'm paying for this. Just listen to me, goddamn it.
And then when it's beyond that level and you feel like, okay, this person definitely needs professional counseling, needs help, that is beyond my realm of speciality, then you should have a core team of 3 or 4 people you can comfortably refer to and say, it's also good to talk your heart out to somebody professional, and there's this doctor. Here's the number. Just keep it if you feel that you need to. But I'm available to you. Still, you need to be there, because you never know. I've had situations where people have been suicidal about acne or about hair loss. In fact, there's a study from Stanford where I did my fellowship. There's a study where on cancer patients, and they looked at suicides in cancer patients, which is, because it's a terminal and serious illness, is understandable. But the largest number of suicides in cancer patients was not because of their terminal illness, was not because of the chemotherapy, which was very severe, was not because of the fear of death. It was because of hair loss, if you can believe that. Their most horrible thing, as far as they were concerned, is having to go out and deal with a society after they'd lost their hair, because of chemotherapy. So you'd never know what impacts a patient. And I always tell my students, don't take things lightly. As in, someone's come in with hair loss and like, yeah, thoda baal gir raha hai, uska, what is the problem? Yeah, why is he making such a fuss? You can't do that. He's sitting in front of you saying he has hair loss, or he has a pimple on his nose, or a little pigmentation. But for him, that is life-threatening. That is really important. It is impacting his quality of life. And nobody has appointed you God and allowed you to dismiss his complaint as being unimportant. Right. If he's going with cirrhosis of the liver, or he's going with a hole in the heart to the cardiologist, and he's going with some other problem, appendicitis, to the surgeon to have it removed, that problem for him is as important as the problem that he's come to you with. In fact, it can be one step more important, because you can have cirrhosis of the liver, or you can have a cardiac problem, and nobody else knows. We're sitting here opposite each other, nobody else knows. But if I have a visual problem, if I'm balding significantly, if I've got a large pigmented area on my face, everybody knows. And everybody, including the nosy neighbor, the helpful auntie, the relative who's met you once at a marriage, is always saying, "Enda Mone, what is happening on your face now? Little bit blackish you have become." Everyone is commenting on it. Everyone is telling you to put curd and besan. Somebody else has a suggestion with Ayurveda, someone's homeopathy. But nobody's doing that for your cirrhosis of the liver. Nobody's doing it for your heart problem. Nobody's doing it for other problems that you have. But visual problems like the skin and the hair are not only your business, are also unfortunately the business of every society member that you meet during the day. So you can't go in for an interview, you can't go into school or college without everyone telling you, "Hey, I don't think you know, Macha. You got one big red pimple." I know. I looked in the mirror today morning. I saw it.
I own a mirror.
Yeah. I put toothpaste on it last night or some other nonsense.
That's the worst,
yeah.
right?
So they've done all kinds of stunts. They've gone on YouTube, and some stupid YouTube blogger has told them, "Take this nonsense and put
some detergent on
yeah.
you.
Wash it off, and your face is going to look like Surf Excel tomorrow morning." And none of those things work. And those poor people have come back with even redder, like Rudolph's red-nosed reindeer. They've come back, there's a pimple, and the whole nose is red on top of that. So the unfortunate part of dermatology or trichology, which is my subspecialty here, is the fact that you have a problem, and everyone knows you have a problem, and everyone else has a solution for your problem. So it can have a huge impact on the quality of life. So...
Right, absolutely. And I one thing I want to actually, eventually I'm planning to make videos as well on the same channel, which is a little different from our podcast series. But I think one thing I've learned by talking to a lot of people and even studying different lives is that every single thing in life is subjective, right? I mean, like you said, a problem to you is not the same as how I perceive the problem, right? Any issue that you might have. And if you think about it, and this is extremely philosophical and very, in one of those areas, right? Any single thing in life is subjective, including the laws that are laid out, which eventually become objective and something that you have to follow.
Yes.
But everything is being laid out subjectively. It's just so funny, right? It's my opinion. You agree with my opinion. We have a group, a cabinet that's, agreed with your opinion. So that becomes a law. And then that becomes, a year later, they realize that just doesn't make sense because that crazy guy said something. And, if you think about it like that, right? So it's so important for us to not go in with your own preconceived notions into just even a conversation for that matter, because you need to be open to understanding what that person's trying to say. Because like you said, even a younger person could be probably wiser than you are, or probably are coming from a very different perspective, which could add value to any of these things. And I think when it comes to problems like what you just mentioned, people are coming there because they maybe years together they've been like thinking about one small pimple.
Yes.
And that's been like, coming back recurring, and they're like...
And not only your preconceived notions, then now when you post a picture on Instagram, it's the preconceived notions of another million people underneath that trolling you. So everyone's like posing like this. And what can I do about my cheeks? Your cheeks are perfectly okay. Will you leave them alone? I have 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds coming to know whether they can correct their cheeks. And I'm looking at them and saying, "You're a very good-looking young man. Why on earth?" Because some picture that they posted on Instagram would have got some comments like, "You're looking like a fat cow," or something like that. And with that, he's constantly looking in the mirror and asking himself, "Am I looking like a fat cow?" That self-doubt which is happening with this entire generation is like tragic almost. You are fitting into certain, criteria which the world has set for you. For want of a better example, if you sometimes look, if you open up the newspaper and
I don't. I'm off news completely.
If they've come up with the contestants for a Miss India or something like that, and somehow all of them look the same. They've all cut their hair the same way. They've got the same kind of lips. They've got the same kind of cheeks. It's like somebody has prepared them in a certain way to look a certain way, and that is sad because I think, if you've been in a class in school, there were fat people and small people and dark people. And that's how you remember them. Like, the years later, you're like there's this funny person who used to sit in the last row. What was his name kind of thing. There were all kinds of people. And now we're making all people look the same. It happens even in our conferences when we go into these dermatology, cosmetology conferences. And I'm looking at my colleagues and everyone has done their lips and done something and are starting to look like a stereotype.
Right.
So that is tragic. I wish we would just allow for the diversity that makes the world a wonderful place.
Yeah. And I think we spoke about this whole weird thing with anti-aging, right? And how people perceive anti-aging. Like you said, corrections. I mean, you need something removed. It's something that's
I don't even like that term.
Yeah, exactly.
Anti-aging sounds like we're against old people. And you're going to put them in that, what is that, Margdarshak Mandal or something like that, early in their lives. Like, okay, we're done with you, you're retired, I don't
Please
want
step out.
Yeah, enough, you're 35. God knows who these cutouts that they create suddenly, like, okay, cutoffs. 30, suddenly someone is saying like, after 30, you're finished. Yeah. And like, I finished 30 quite some time ago. What am I now, a fossil? So these things these age cutoffs that we create are really tragic and sad. Right. And I think we should embrace the process of aging. If you're lucky, you're not going to avoid old age. So you're going to reach there and hopefully...
How do you avoid?
But we won't say that. I did not say that. Okay. That's the only way you can avoid aging. But otherwise, why not age gracefully? Why not age with dignity instead of doing weird things to yourself? I think one of the most tragic things you can see is like a 75, 80-year-old man clutching desperately onto youth with jet black hair and stuff that has been done, or wearing inappropriate clothes, and you're looking at him saying, okay, all right, look at him, he's still in these Hawaiian shirts and things like that, which is okay. It's a choice you make. Yeah. But when when the rest of you is not matching that, and then you're desperately holding on to youth, it starts to look a little... So at some stage, you have to say, okay, I'm enjoying the process of aging. I can feel the creaking of my joints and I'm going to go with it. I'm going to, become age appropriate. That's all that you need to do.
Right. And when did you start? When did you move into stand-up again? You said that's probably the most recent thing you've picked up, right? So how long has it been since that you moved into?
2 or 3 years.
That's it? Wow. I mean, that's crazy talk. People, I mean, in their teens itself, or maybe in their 20s too, are quite fearful of like stage fright and just how people might, perceive, or just maybe they'll know me for who I truly am. And then at that point, it's like, oh God, oh no, now it's like really sad, right?
I'd written a play actually called Gentlemen, which was 4 monologues. So in the process of when it was being performed by people like Ashwin, Matthew and things like that, the feedback I got was that, each one of these could have been a stand-up act. So basically I was writing stand-up material for 4 different actors. Right. So it was a deliciously vulgar play, which talked about issues that men never talk about.
Okay.
So including things like impotence and things like that. So at the end of that, I realized that, as far as content creation is concerned, for a stand-up, the most important thing is the writing. I think whether it's a movie or now you're looking at the OTT series and things like that, the rest of it doesn't matter. Production and all that is important, but it's after you have good content.
Right.
If you have good content, then 3/4 of your battle is won. So I found that if I could write up material which was being used by other people as a monologue and as a theatre performance, and it worked and people were laughing, and we had houseful shows not only in Bangalore, rerun shows of Gentlemen many times. So I said, okay, there is something, I can create the content. So why not create the content for myself? You have a basic concept of what you'd like to say. You have, you're going to touch on these topics. And then like you said, with crowd work, when you're interacting with people, that changes. You should be able to respond to that, which anyway as a teacher you do, because you get heckled in class. Somebody says something from one corner of the class and you have to, that funny person, you
very different type of improv.
Yeah. You have to be funnier than the funny ass guy at the back of the, in the back row. So if you've started doing that and you're able to do that kind of improv, then you should be able to do stand-up also. Again, like I confessed to you, I get really, really nervous before stand-up because you never know what the audience is going to be like. Sometimes there's this very dignified audience whom I think are laughing, but they are of that strata of society who think that it's indecent to laugh loudly. So the stand-up comic has no concept at all whether his joke has worked or not because they're going, really?
Oh, yeah,
that's
so
very
nice.
amusing. And at the end of it, they'll come and tell you, that was so funny. I enjoyed myself. So why didn't you laugh? Because it's
in
not
the closed room.
Yeah, in our circles, we don't laugh. We just gently giggle or something like that. Like, please laugh. We need you to laugh. Only then we know whether we're funny or not.
Oh God. So that I think a lot of people don't even try these things because of the fear of the unknown, right? Just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? But
Yes.
like you said, what's the worst that can happen?
It's scary.
It is. But see, if you think about it, any important thing that you plan to do in life is scary.
It's scary.
Because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
That's the excitement. It's the fear. It's also the excitement.
It's the fear. It's also whether you're going to thrive in that fear, right? Whether while you're going through that whole journey, like, see, anyone signs up for education. I mean, let's say, for instance, with medicine, you're signing up for literally for the long haul, right?
Yes.
And there's fear there too, whether you can either pay back the loans or whether I can be a successful doctor. Everyone else is a doctor. What do I do? But I think the moment you start realizing that, you know what, this is my place, this is my space, I need to thrive here and I can put in the effort. I think that's how you get to it, right?
True. It's like trying to learn swimming without ever going into the swimming pool. You're going to have to first go there and put your feet in and get used to the cold and then plunge in somewhere and start swimming. Hopefully somebody's there, a mentor, somebody like that who will get you through the initial steps, teach you the right way to swim, and then you're on your own. You're going to have to do those laps on your own.
Correct, right. But this is great stuff, Anil. And I think one last thing I want to definitely talk about is, and this is just because it holds a very a special place in my heart, which is you were the character of Appukuttan Nair back in radio. And so I remember radio was a huge thing. Forget India, in Bangalore.
Yes.
Because of just how, I think English radio,
Yes.
for that matter, with Radio City, was such a big thing because all the other cities are trying to do what we were doing.
Yes.
And we had such a, radio is the thing and happening.
We had a
and,
head start on that.
Yeah, big time. I had people coming down from Mumbai, from Chennai, and they used to, maybe the commute from the airport to here, and they'd be like, wow, this radio is crazy. I can't be, where's this, is it pulling from the States or something?
True.
That's crazy. And I think people like Darius, I think we spoke about Darius, Sunaina, people we have, listened to while growing up.
And those were the days when you actually listened to the RJ. You didn't change the radio station saying, okay, now I want another song.
Right.
What they were saying was interesting. It was an integral part of radio, and you were in love with your RJ as much as you were with the music that he was playing.
Right.
So, people like Darius, Sunaina, Vasanti, Hariprakash, they played a big role and, in making radio so exciting for us. So at that time, I was doing Sparklers in Radio City.
Right.
And
for people who don't know what sparklers are.
yeah, they're just like comic characters that you create. And then, you've had the pranks done after that. So those are all an evolution of that. So the character that I was doing was of an elderly uncle called Uncle Appukuttan Nair. So he would come on radio and offer unsolicited advice, which was also tweaked a little bit with Bollywood music so that the RJ could lead into the song or, connect with the song that was going to be played. Right. So coming back to my famous hair example, it used to be things like, yesterday my friend came in and she was complaining, that Babida was complaining that she was losing hair. Doctor, I'm losing hair. Do something. Otherwise, from Kiran Kher, I will become Anupam Kher. Do something, doctor, because, everywhere there is hair. In my bathroom drain, there is hair. In my comb, there is hair. In my husband's chili chicken, there is hair. Everywhere there is hair except on my head. So I would add a Bollywood song to it and say, don't worry, baal baal dekho, hazar baal dekho. That would work into the song. That is, right. And his advice would end with what, trying to make everything okay for that person and say, problem solved. Always come to Appukuttan angle, they say. So simple, no? So he was trying to make everything simple.
Oh my God, that is so crazy. And for all the viewers and listeners as well, I had no idea that you played that character. And we were talking on a call, and you said, so I did this Appukuttan role.
I thought it must be beyond the time for these people.
I'm not
anyway.
like 10, okay? Like what?
I thought Akash is not going to know about Uncle Appukutan. It's way beyond.
No, but that was radio was a big boom then, right? And if you remember, I think Radio City was thriving then. That was probably the only one. Then slowly Mirchi came up, and then all the other. Now we have so many radio stations, right? But I think that was crazy. I remember traveling to school, and I think you said the same thing where kids would want to sit back.
Yes, I had mothers complaining to me and saying, I dropped my kid outside Bishop Cotton's and he doesn't get out of the car and go until Appukutan said his so simple no. It's like, okay, my day has begun.
Oh my God, it is so simple. Oh yeah, so yeah,
it's about as simple as or as complicated as we make it finally.
Exactly. So actually, if you could quickly touch upon that, how did things open up in radio? I mean, when did you decide to just get into radio? Is it and I think it's through theatre itself, and because you're part of that community itself, right?
Some amount of theatre community overlaps into voiceovers when they need for ads, things like that also happen. So a large part of the theatre community were being chosen for radio because their voices were already trained and things like that. So in that process, I had friends in radio, and they also knew that I do comedy or I write comedy or perform comic characters well. So I was called in and auditioned. Initially, it was also to see whether I could take in a slot. But unfortunately, the time would not allow me. So this comes back to that conflict resolution which you talk about. You have to decide whether you want to primarily be a doctor or not. So if I was doing something like a morning show or something like that, I would need to spend large amounts of time in the studio because you're a full-time employee. So that I couldn't do. Whereas with a sparkler or a comic character, I just needed to go in 3 times a week or 2 times a week and record what was needed for the entire week, which was comfortable. So I could indulge in my passion, enjoy myself creating a comic character, creating content for that comic character every week, linking it up with Bollywood, which is something that I enjoy. I enjoy song, Hindi music song, Malayalam movie music song. So I worked that in. And then I have an entire family of Malayali characters to draw from to create the content.
Don't we all?
So that was easy in terms of, I just needed to remember my Achayan or somebody who spoke exactly like that or did something like that. So he was based in Malleshwaram, this Appukutan character. So it was a Malayali character in Bangalore. So radio came in like that, and I enjoyed the entire journey of radio. It's only when the Radio City office moved to Bannerghatta Road, again, the commute kept me from, continuing with that. Otherwise, the journey with radio has been fun, and I'd love to do work with radio anytime I get a chance.
Nice. That's awesome. I think this is a good place for us to wrap things up. And I think we spoke about a lot of things, and there's more I wanted to actually talk about. But yeah, we'll definitely have you here again. And, we, like you said, I think we laughed about it last night, which is, I think I'll have to stop you from speaking.
Yes. I told you I'm a Vayadi. For those who don't know what a Vayadi is, a person who does not know when to stop talking. And I have to quote my wife here, who's my great support system, because I have a problem with putting on weight and talking too much or inappropriately saying the wrong things. I haven't said anything wrong.
We'll know soon in the comments.
Yeah, she keeps telling me, if you only keep your mouth shut, you will solve 2 of the major problems in your life. One is putting on weight and the other is getting into trouble because of what you said. So on that note, zip.
No, but we need you to say one last thing, which is something we ask of all our guests, which is, what would your billboard message be, or something that that you maybe have already spoken about on the show, but you might want to talk a little more about, or one message for all our viewers and listeners?
I think I'll reiterate the fact that you have only one life to live, and please live it. Don't wait for any parallel life to happen. So do everything that you want to do right now.
Right. Get going.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. And if people had to find you online, where can we send them?
Online, there is a clinic website if you're looking for me professionally. Otherwise, I'm on Insta, docanilabraham. I'm also on Facebook as docanilabraham.
I'll link all of that in the description and show notes below. But Anil, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a big. I'm glad that we could make this happen, and I think we've been in talks for a bit now. Yes. But it's great that you finally got here. And like I tell all my guests, and I honestly, truly mean it. And I think you live nearby now. We have moved to studio, right? Yes. We'll have you here again, and we'll talk about a lot more.
This has been fun. Thank you so much for having me over.
Yeah, thanks, Anil. Hit that like button if you found this conversation with Anil useful and interesting. It really helps with the algorithm. If you are listening to this over audio though, then I would highly, highly appreciate it if you could leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It goes a long way in spreading the word and getting the show out there. So what are your thoughts on Anil's episode? Let me know in the comments below. Isn't he just a swell guy? I remember mentioning this to one of my good friends about someone else actually, that he's a swell guy, and this friend of mine ridiculed me for calling this guy swell or using the word swell, and he ridiculed me for being about 40-50 years old. So what are your thoughts on the word swell as well? I'd like to know that too in the comments below. Next episode is a hilarious, super power packed one, and I can't wait for you guys to experience it. But yeah, until then, ciao.